This is Sparta!
He was once Sparta's greatest war hero, praised for defeating the Persians and bringing glory to his city. But over time, his pride and hunger for power began to worry the leaders of Sparta, who saw him as a growing threat. Accused of betrayal, Pausanias fled to a sacred temple, hoping for protection. Unable to drag him out by force, the Spartans sealed the entrance and left him trapped inside, where he slowly starved to death, turning a hero's life into one of the darkest and most haunting stories in Spartan history. Pausanias grew up in Sparta, a place where kindness came last and toughness came first. He was born into the Agiad royal family, one of Sparta's two ruling lines. But even with the royal blood, life wasn't easy. In Sparta, boys were taken from their homes at age 7 and thrown into military training. This training, called the agoge, was harsh. They were taught to fight, obey orders, and never complain. Weakness wasn't allowed. Comfort didn't exist. This brutal system made Pausanias strong. He learned how to lead, how to fight, and how to survive. But his moment came during one of the biggest threats Greece ever faced, the Persian invasion. Around 480 BC, the Persian king Xerxes brought a giant army to take over Greece. He had soldiers from all over his empire, ships, horses, and supplies that seemed endless. It looked like no one could stop him. At first, the Greeks struggled. King Leonidas of Sparta and 300 soldiers made a brave stand at Thermopylae, but they were killed. After Leonidas died, Sparta needed someone to step in. Pausanias was chosen as regent, meaning he ruled in place of Leonidas' young son. He also became commander of the Greek land army. Pausanias had a tough job. He had to lead soldiers from different Greek cities, many of which didn't get along, but he focused on one thing: defeating the Persians. He brought order, stayed calm, and didn't waste time. He got everyone ready for one final battle. That battle came in 479 BC at a place called Plataea. The Persian army was still huge, but this time the Greeks were ready. Pausanias led the charge. He fought with courage, kept his army organized, and didn't back down. The Persians were crushed. Their leader, Mardonius, was killed. The rest of the Persian army ran for their lives. It was a big win for Greece. It ended the invasion, and Pausanias became a hero. People praised him, honored him, and looked up to him. His name was known all over the land, but fame can be dangerous. Pausanias didn't know it yet, but trouble was waiting for him down the road. For now, though, he was the man who saved Greece, the tough Spartan who rose at the right time, stood strong, and kicked Persia out of their land. By 479 BC, Greece was exhausted. The Persian army had burned cities, destroyed homes, and left a trail of fear across the land. But the Greeks weren't done yet. They had one last shot to stop the Persians for good. And leading the way was Pausanias, the Spartan regent who had already proven he could stay calm when everything around him was falling apart. King Xerxes had already left Greece, but he didn't take his whole army with him. He left behind his top general, Mardonius, along with a huge force. They camped near Plataea, ready to crush the Greeks once and for all. Mardonius thought he had it in the bag. Then Pausanias showed up, with a mixed army of Spartans, Athenians, Corinthians, and other city-states. These groups didn't get along, but they all knew this was their last chance. Pausanias had to lead people who didn't trust each other. It was like trying to organize a group project with 5 people who all think they're the smartest in the room. Still, he kept them focused. He didn't rush into battle. He waited for the right moment. The Persians tried to cut off their water and food. They tried to draw the Greeks out of position, but Pausanias didn't fall for it. He moved carefully, made changes when needed, and held his ground. When the final fight started, it was rough. Spears flew, shields clashed, and dust filled the air. Greek and Persian soldiers fought up close, with chaos all around. Pausanias kept control. He made sure the Spartans didn't break, and the Athenians kept pushing forward. The turning point came when Mardonius was killed. After that, the Persian army fell apart. Many ran. Some tried to hide, but it was over. The Greeks won. And not just a small win, a huge one. The Persian land army in Greece was destroyed. That was the end of the invasion. Pausanias became a hero. People cheered his name. He was no longer just a stand-in ruler, he was the man who led the Greeks to their biggest victory. He kept the army together, stayed smart under pressure, and crushed one of the strongest forces in the world. He saved Greece when it needed him the most. After the great victory at Plataea, Pausanias became a star. People praised him everywhere. He was seen as the man who helped save Greece. But in Sparta, people didn't like too much fame. They liked quiet strength, not someone who started acting above others. Soon after the battle, Pausanias went to Byzantium. That's where things began to change. Instead of keeping the simple life that Spartans followed, he started living like a Persian. He wore rich clothes, he hired Persian guards, he even started copying their way of eating and holding court. People saw him walking around like he was royalty. Whispers began to spread. People said he was sending messages to Xerxes, the Persian king. Some believed he wanted to marry Xerxes' daughter and rule all of Greece with Persian help. Others said he was offering to give up Greek cities. Nothing was confirmed at first, but his behavior made people nervous. Back home, the Spartan leaders kept a close eye on him. They started to think he no longer cared about the rules. He ignored orders, made his own plans, and acted like no one could question him. That was a big problem in a city where discipline and equality were everything. Pausanias had become too powerful. His love for luxury was only part of it. What scared people more was how he saw himself. Many believed he was reaching too high. Sparta didn't trust that kind of ambition. It reminded them of tyrants, men who put themselves above the state. After a while, real proof started showing up. A message he sent to the Persians was found. Slaves came forward and said they carried his letters. That was enough. People began to say it out loud. Pausanias was working with the enemy. The same leaders who once supported him now turned away. They believed he had gone too far. He had broken trust, broken rules, and brought shame to Sparta. His past victories didn't matter anymore. In the end, it was fear and pride that brought him down. Sparta didn't allow one man to rise too high. No matter how brave or smart he was, there were limits. Pausanias crossed those lines, and the city that raised him now saw him as a threat. After all the talk and growing doubts, the leaders in Sparta decided it was time to deal with Pausanias. They sent for him. The same man they once praised for winning at Plataea now had to come home and explain himself. This wasn't a visit. It was a serious call. He was going to be put on trial for treason. The charge was heavy. People believed he had been working with the Persian king, Xerxes. Some said he sent secret messages. Others claimed he wanted to rule over all of Greece with Persian help. These were not small mistakes. In Sparta, even a rumor like that could ruin someone. Pausanias returned. He stood before the court. He didn't break down or beg. He stayed calm, just like he had during battles, showing no fear as the trial began, and witnesses slowly started coming forward to speak against him. Some said they had seen strange behavior. Some slaves said they were sent to deliver letters, but there was a problem. Nothing was fully clear. There were no letters left, no strong proof. It was all word of mouth. The court listened. They knew he was acting different in Byzantium. He'd started living more like a rich Persian than a simple Spartan. But in the end, that wasn't enough to call him a traitor. There was no solid evidence, so they let him go. He was cleared of the charges, but even though he walked free, things didn't go back to normal. People didn't trust him anymore. He still had the name and the past, but the respect was gone. People in the streets talked behind his back. Friends stopped visiting. It was like he had a sign on him that said, "Watch out." The trial didn't erase the rumors. If anything, it made them louder. Some believed he escaped punishment because he was clever. Others thought he was still planning something. Even without a guilty sentence, the fear stayed. Pausanias tried to carry on with his life, but everything had changed. Every step he took was watched. Every word was judged. In a city like Sparta, where rules mattered more than emotions, that kind of attention was dangerous. The court let him go, but the people didn't. His past wins weren't strong enough to protect him from doubt, and that doubt was slowly closing in. After Pausanias helped win the war against Persia, many thought he would be celebrated forever. But Sparta was not the kind of place that trusted easily. People were always watching, and they didn't forget their strict rules. Pausanias had become famous, but that fame started turning into trouble. Rumors began to spread. People said Pausanias was acting too much like a Persian. He wore fancy clothes, hired Persian guards, and copied their customs. In most places, this wouldn't be a big deal, but Sparta hated luxury. They believed in being tough, plain, and serious. So when Pausanias started behaving like a foreign king, people began to worry. Then things got worse. There were new accusations that Pausanias was planning to start a rebellion. And not just any rebellion. He was accused of trying to get the Helots to rise up. The Helots were Sparta's lowest class. They were forced to work the land and serve the state. Spartans treated them harshly and kept them under control through fear. If the Helots ever rebelled, it would be a disaster. So when people said Pausanias was trying to lead them into a revolt, the city was shocked. The story didn't stop there. People also said Pausanias had contacted the Persians again, asking for their help to take over Sparta. The idea was that if he couldn't rise through normal Spartan ways, he would do it with support from outsiders and slaves. Whether this was true or not didn't matter much anymore. In Sparta, even the idea of betraying the city was a serious crime. The leaders, known as the ephors, started watching him closely. They collected letters, listened to witnesses, and gathered evidence. Pausanias became the center of attention, and not in a good way. Sparta's society was very strict. The system only worked if everyone followed the rules. Warriors ruled at the top, helots stayed at the bottom, and no one questioned the order. Pausanias, with his fame and strange behavior, looked like a threat to that system. He was seen meeting in secret and sending messages that worried the leaders. Even if he wasn't planning a real uprising, people believed he could. And in Sparta, fear alone was enough to act. The accusations were serious, planning a helot revolt and working with Persia again. It didn't matter that he had once saved Greece. Now, people saw him as dangerous. His fall was quick. The same city that once trusted him with its army now saw him as a traitor. And in Sparta, traitors didn't get second chances. As the rumors and accusations against Pausanias continued to grow, he quickly realized that his time was running out and that the Spartan leaders were preparing to arrest him for treason. Just a few years earlier, he had been praised as the hero of the Battle of Plataea, the man who helped save Greece from the powerful Persian army. But now, that same city saw him as a dangerous traitor who had turned his back on their values and possibly plotted with slaves and enemies. Knowing what was coming, Pausanias didn't wait around to be taken by force. Instead, he ran to the temple of Athena Chalkioikos, a sacred place at the heart of Sparta, where the goddess Athena was worshipped. In the ancient world, temples were seen as places of protection, and no matter the crime, people who took refuge there could not be dragged out or harmed inside. Even the strict leaders of Sparta respected this rule, as breaking it would be an insult to the gods themselves. However, the city's rulers were not willing to let Pausanias go free either. Since they couldn't arrest him directly from the temple, they chose another path, one that was quiet, cruel, and completely in line with how Sparta dealt with those they believed were dangerous. They ordered the doors of the temple to be sealed from the outside, using bricks and stones to block the entrance, and placed guards to make sure no food or water could be sent in. Trapped inside, Pausanias was left to starve slowly, with no one allowed to speak to him or offer help. Some versions of the story say that even his own mother helped carry bricks to seal him in, or at least gave her approval, turning her back on her son out of shame for what he had become. Whether this detail is true or not, it shows how completely he had fallen from grace, not only in the eyes of the state, but even within his own family. When temple priests saw that Pausanias was close to death, they became worried, since letting someone die inside a holy place was considered disrespectful to the gods. So, they opened part of the wall just enough to pull him out, and he died shortly after being removed from the temple. Pausanias' death was not quick or heroic. It was slow, lonely, and deeply symbolic. It reminded everyone in Sparta that no matter how powerful or successful someone might be, breaking the city's rules and values would not be forgiven. His tragic end sent a strong message. In a place like Sparta, loyalty mattered more than past victories, and even a war hero could be left to die if he stepped too far out of line. Pausanias' story is more than just the rise and fall of a famous Spartan. It shows how hard it can be to lead, stay loyal, and hold on to power in a strict place like ancient Sparta. On the battlefield, he was a strong and clever commander. He led the Greek forces at the Battle of Plataea and helped defeat the Persian army. Many people believed he was a hero who saved Greece. He had courage, skill, and the ability to lead soldiers from different cities who didn't always get along. But leading in war was very different from living in Sparta. While he became well known and respected across Greece, many in Sparta began to feel uneasy. Spartans didn't care about fame or luxury. They believed in hard work, simple living, and loyalty to the city. Pausanias, over time, started acting differently. He wore Persian-style clothes, had foreign guards, and seemed to enjoy power a little too much. This worried people. To Spartans, he looked less like a leader and more like someone who had forgotten who he was. This is where his personal dreams began to clash with Spartan values. Maybe Pausanias believed he deserved more respect and more power after winning such an important battle. But in Sparta, there was no room for personal ambition. The city came first, always. People started to say that he was working with the Persians again, or that he was trying to start a Helot revolt. No one knew for sure, but in Sparta, even a rumor like that was dangerous. His story also shows how politics worked in ancient Greece. Winning battles wasn't enough. You had to follow the rules of your city and keep the powerful people on your side. In Sparta, a group called the Ephors watched over everything, or even the kings. Once they felt that Pausanias had gone too far, they acted quickly. And once they believed he was a threat, there was no way back. Writers like Thucydides and Herodotus later told his story in their books. They said he was smart and brave, but also proud and full of ambition. Thucydides thought he was a great general who made bad choices because of his ego. Herodotus told a version where it wasn't clear if he was guilty or not, but he still ended up punished. These stories didn't make him look like a monster, but like someone who made big mistakes. Today, Pausanias is remembered as someone who was once great but lost everything because he couldn't stay within the limits set by his own people. His story is a warning that even the strongest hero can fall, not because of enemies, but because of pride, power, and turning away from what made them strong in the first place. In a place like Sparta, that was all it took to lose everything. Pausanias' death was a tragic warning, a clear message from Sparta to anyone who dared challenge its laws. If you enjoy chilling stories from ancient history, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.